Ladies and gents, welcome to the Go Long Show at golongtd.com, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, everywhere you get your podcasts. We greatly appreciate you coming along for this ride, fueled by our friends at Fatty Beer Company, downtown Orchard Park, Hamburg, Kenmore, Tonawanda. They're all over the place, and we definitely got to get into a fatty very soon, Jimmy. But you know what? We're gonna give it a couple weeks in terms of actually in-person fatty visits because the combine it's not even really the alcohol anymore. I think like in your younger days when you're there as a reporter or as a scout, a coach, maybe you hit it kind of hard, prime, high velocity, all the usual haunts. But as you get older, it's really just talking for 5 days straight that wears you out. It's it's all of the 5, 10, 15-minute conversations that you got to have. I mean, the NFL Combine, this is what it's all about. The NFL world descends upon Indianapolis, and we'll get into the lay of the land a bit. But my whole week was basically spent, at the JW Marriott Starbucks or, the bottom of an escalator or various nooks and crannies of the Indianapolis Convention Center, which is basically everything Buffalo, New York should have. It's great how you can walk everywhere without even going outside. But yes, back home in Western New York, we have some stories up at the site, but a lot more coming next week and beyond. It was a very, very productive week on multiple levels. But Jim, it's good to see you, man.
Man, I'm just happy, Tyler. It's good to see you too. I'm just happy you survived the vortex of the combine. You entered and survived. You're back home. Your family must be happy. It's like you survived like a vacation. Like, hey, I'm going to do some I'm going away for 4 or 5 days. Wish me luck. I should make it back in one piece. That's the combine. You come back. Every clip you see at the combine of all these 10, 15-minute interviews, you can tell everybody's glazed over, repeat same stuff. They have their notes for whatever team they're talking about, the Bills, whatever team they're sitting down to talk about that day with it's unreal. And I remember those days too, because we used to joke about, you could just look at everybody, every scout, every director, GM, coach in the NFL is sitting around watching these drills, red faced, flushed, sweating, because everybody's hungover or just tired from the repetitive interviews and like you said, repetitive same conversations. Yes, he's my number third rank. Yes, he's my third ranked receiver. He's my fifth ranked receiver. No, he's my sixth ranked receiver. It's all the same. Everybody does it, and it's nonstop. So good to see you refreshed and ready to go today.
Well, and you know what? There's really two ways to cover the NFL Combine from a media perspective. We kind of were there for so long in two totally different worlds. I think my first Combine would have been 2011 or 2012. So since then, but early on as a beat writer at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, it was all at Lucas Oil, like Club Suite. Everybody kind of right there. They'd bring the prospects out, GMs, coaches, and I can just remember being young and not a little inexperienced to how to best take advantage of an event like this and cranking out, 4 or 5 blog posts a day, like just trying to be a content machine as all of these prospects are coming out. I mean, it could have been Austin Davis at Southern Miss with a Brett Favre story, or, Johnny Manziel standing there at the podium saying he's a changed man. You get a little bit of everything, but as you get older, as a reporter covering this game, you realize the best way to cover this event is not by talking to every prospect imaginable. It is getting away from that world and just walking around the Westin, the J-Dub, Starbucks here, coffee shop there, hallways of the convention center. Because, when you're around it long enough, you kind of recognize coaches that might have changed teams, scouts that have been around for a while, different media members it's great catching up with. So that's kind of how I try to cover it at Go Long. And right, you have some casual conversations along the way, and you don't really know what it's going to lead to down the road. But yes, it is exhausting because those conversations are endless. My buddy Robert Mays, he's got the excellent Athletic Football Show podcast. He put it best. He's like he mastered the handshake and walk. Like the smile, the handshake, and just keep on moving. Because if you did just stop to talk to everybody at length, yeah, you lose your voice, which I did a little bit, I suppose.
We
But how did you
switched.
like? How was your combine experience as a scout?
So as scouts, we kind of used to, especially as area scouts in the southeast, we would start the head nod policy. Like, look, at some point, we've seen each other every day. Whether look, we're all traveling together. Like we all should have just been traveling together. We talked about that. Like you just put all the scout. Like you go from school to school this time of year after the combine for the pro days, and it's all lined up so you can just travel and so it syncs up, makes sense, it coordinates perfectly. That's done in advance. um Point being is it's just enough. Like you can't keep talking about the same thing, and good to see you. You just got to give a head nod, keep it moving. You have to know, you have to be quick to know how to get in and out of conversation for sure. Be very
It's an
careful.
art.
Be very, if you're going to stop, you got to be willing to give up 5 to 10 minutes of something you're not
Right,
getting
because
back.
I mean, you don't want to be a d
No,
bag, right? You don't want to
no,
be
no.
like that. You want to be friendly. You want to be yourself.
Mhm. You find out quick. You do find out quick, like who knows your name,
Yeah,
because
and
you can tell the
also
people that are looking down to see if there's a name tag or it's always
right.
there.
That's the other thing. The name tags. Everybody who works for an NFL team, they're rocking the apparel, so they've got the logo front and
Oh,
center.
it's
Plus, there was a big weather change. It's 60 degrees one day, 20-degree the next. So you have all of that mindless small talk at your disposal. Uh, the backdrop, obviously, is I mean, Prime 47, the steakhouse downtown, they just stay open until what, 4, 5, 6 a.m. I mean, people are there basically all night if they want to. Uh, High Velocity is the bar at the JW Marriott. Spent one night there talking to folks, but I could obviously cannot hang that late anymore. That's not not an option. But yeah, by the end of the week, a lot of people are very low velocity and past their prime. See what I did there?
it's almost, I feel like you almost have a deal with Prime. Um,
Disgusting. No, I think the best way to do it as you get older and you are past your prime is to really work the room, work the hallways in the morning,
you're right.
right? Get
You're
get
right.
to
The
bed
players,
at 9,
it's
10 o'clock and get up at 6 a.m. There's there's a lot of other people who choose to go that route and are down to drink a cup of Joe. I had a nice hour-long chat with, we'll just say, one team president in the morning, and if either one of us were hitting prime or high velocity, there's no way that would have happened. So many ways to experience the NFL Combine. And there are some 40-yard dashes, I suppose, and some bench presses and broad jumps. And the reason we're doing this podcast is because when you're at all of these different locations and having all of these conversations, you kind of get a feel for free agency, for where teams are leaning one direction or the other. It's really the first step, though, too, because I mean, this is the first time a lot of these teams are talking to representatives and agents for free agents. And the first time they're starting to kind of wrap their heads around, okay, we need a quarterback. Kirk Cousins is available. Justin Fields is available via trade, but we also have, hell, 4, 5, 6 options in the draft a month after free agency. So I don't think there's some reports out there, but they're more like faint reports, like echoes in the ether because it's still so early. I don't think GMs and coaches really know, hell yeah, Justin Field. Like they're really just kind of gauging all their options as we record this podcast right now, midday Saturday. But even then, you do get a sense for maybe where things are going. So let's just dive right into it, Jim. Uh, to me, the first domino is Kirk Cousins. And I think it's Kirk Cousins' decision, honestly. I really think that the Minnesota Vikings genuinely want Kirk Cousins back as their quarterback. Now, there might be some interesting conversations had internally. I think Kevin O'Connell is all in. If you read his quotes, and we shared some at Go Long from his press conference, he's all in on my family knows his family. He did some great things, beat the San Francisco 49ers, took it to Green Bay at Lambeau before tearing that Achilles. If the medical checks out, if he's the same quarterback, hell, you got Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, a good offensive line. You're in the NFC, not the AFC. It all adds up. I mean, Kirk Cousins is going to be 36. You could easily talk yourself into Kirk Cousins giving you one more good year, maybe two more really good years. Now, is he your long-term answer? No, because he's getting older. But I do think the Vikings want Kirk Cousins back. You know, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the GM, he said kind of the same thing. But remember, he's more of a numbers guy. He's coming from a different world, the analytics world, and you do wonder where he would really like to go. Does he want a more mobile quarterback who can do different things? I do think they're on the same page. They want him back, but this time it's going to be at their number. It's not going to be fully guaranteed. Kirk setting his price. I think they did go to Kirk Cousins representatives and basically said, here's what we're looking at. And Kirk Cousins will then gauge the market. He's going to have more of a market than any of the other quarterbacks at play right now. So that's why he's the first domino. And then it's on, okay, does Atlanta make a play? Pittsburgh, Las Vegas. Uh, Atlanta's the key team here if they want to go higher than Minnesota. And I think Minnesota will go pretty high. I would just be shooting from the hip to throw numbers at you in the mid 40s, but we're talking north of 40. Kirk Cousins has been a man of business, right? He has been a man of business, Jim. As much as he loves Minnesota and his family being there and in the schools, as great of a relationship as he has with Kevin O'Connell, and maybe that is the best place for him to pursue a Super Bowl. He has always maximized every dollar he can for himself. Really, it's damn impressive what he's done with the franchise tag. Nobody took that route that Kirk Cousins has taken. So that's where I'm leaning. I'm thinking, okay, he'll take more money somewhere else. It's a gut feeling more than anything. If somebody's willing to give him more than Minnesota is, I think Kirk Cousins takes it because that's what he's done. Maybe it's a little tougher this time because of the family dynamic. But I do think the Vikings make a competitive offer, and it's up to the quarterback. It's up to Kirk Cousins.
Well, I feel like you summed that up perfectly at the end there with it's up to Kirk Cousins. I think he's gonna have his kind of wish here. As far as if he is comfortable, I was thinking about how you said how the combine was different when obviously life is different when you're younger, but when we first started the combine, it's wild, wild, wild. Now it's nice to kind of just settle down at the coffee shop and talk to people. 36 years old at quarterback, you know what you have. You've got prime time, you got a big time receiver, your family's settled in up in a great city of Minneapolis. Obviously, I've heard nothing but great things about that city as far as raising family. Um, I just don't know how comfortable he is in his life. And if Minnesota is competitive and fair with whatever that number is, I think you get him in Minnesota. I think you keep him. But you're right. I think the number could come in. I mean, it could be where Minnesota says, no, we can't mess with that.
Here's what Kevin O'Connell said at his press conference about Kirk Cousins and his relationship. Quote, yeah, I think it's unique just because we go back so much further than that, having coached him in 2017 and just that initial foundation of building the relationship, not only with Kirk, but with Julie, his wife, and we love his family. My family and his family are close. So then we come here 2 years ago, and Kirk was a huge reason why I thought so highly, amongst a lot of things, about the Minnesota Vikings opportunity because of my belief in him. We've won a lot of games over these past 2 years with Kirk as our quarterback, and I thought he was playing as well as anybody in the National Football League when he got hurt after beating the Packers at Lambeau last year. Coming off a Monday night win over the team that represented the NFC in the Super Bowl, and to have that happen was a big deal for me personally and much beyond just my role coaching the team. But it's been awesome to see him through his rehab and where he is now, really get back up on his feet. You get the idea. Oh, and he noted that they've gone through adversity together. They've had a lot of success together. It's pretty clear on Minnesota's end. I mean, they were really upfront. I don't think they're hiding anything. They want him back,
They
and
should want him
they're going
back.
to
They
make
know
a very competitive offer.
Exactly. They should want him back. I mean, you know what you have right there. You have exactly what you know, your stats, you know what you're putting up a game with him at quarterback. Where do you rank in the NFC with everything?
Yeah.
How competitive are you with Kirk Cousins? You're right in the mix. As soon as you lose him, you have now hit what every coach hates, the unknown.
Man, I had a good 7.5 hour drive with stops back and to really think about this decision. And I go back and forth. Like, put yourself in Kirk Cousins' shoes. Like you said, your family's comfortable in Minnesota. The Netflix documentary showed that side of his life, that he loves it there. You know, I get it. Justin Jefferson's yelled at him that one time. It was caught on to. I think Jefferson likes playing with Cousins. He's put up some pretty damn good numbers. He's going to get paid. He's going to give you a shot downfield. The Vikings want him. You're in the NFC. You've seen a team like the Rams win a Super Bowl with Stafford. You've seen the 49ers get to 2 conference title games and a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. The Lions, it's not out of the realm of possibility to talk yourself into the Vikings being in that category. Why not, right? Like, you could be a Viking legend, right? This rabid fan base, if you were able to get over that hump. I don't know if that stuff means anything to Kirk Cousins, but he that could be his long-term home as a legend. That fan base is legit. It's right up there. Does any of that stuff being Kirk Cousins stays versus taking an extra, what, 2-3 mil a year somewhere else? Is Atlanta appealing? Is Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts? Does he see Atlanta as a team that could do the same thing if he's there? I think his wife is from Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken. Man, I don't know. Only he can answer that question.
It was good. It was good. TMZ by you. The wife from Atlanta. I didn't know that.
Is she? I have to look
I
it
don't
up.
know. Out of the way you said that was, I mean, interesting for sure. If that plays a part in it. That's why I said that. That was it. That does play a part. I always talk about it. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I don't want to say 100%, but Drew Brees, that whole story, we talked about it with when he was deciding between Miami and New Orleans.
Hmm.
That was just devastated from Katrina. I think when we talk about easy decisions when you're on that tour, Miami versus destroyed New Orleans, we know where his wife probably wanted to go. We know where everybody wanted him to, it was all about Miami. And that when they failed him medically, that doc that changed the Saints, it changed all our lives in New Orleans. But anyway, point being is it matters. Like the family matters.
Alpharetta, Georgia, just north of Atlanta.
Oh
Yes,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fulton County.
I used to live in Lithia Springs, Georgia, Tyler, right outside of Atlanta when I was scouting in the Southeast for a couple of years before I moved to Charleston, South Carolina. But that direct flight, living in Atlanta, right outside of Atlanta, for those direct flights is
Hmm.
that's a game changer when you're traveling a lot. I will say that that was nice. All
I
right,
just want to
so
add this because
yeah,
this was kind of interesting. You know, and I imagine that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell have had these conversations because we're just kind of under the assumption, and I do take the Vikings at their word. They want Kirk Cousins back. They'll make a competitive
of
offer.
course,
They will, right? That's the name of the game. We talked about it last podcast. Like, push money down the road, go for it now.
go for it,
I mean,
keep him.
Brandon Beane said it himself. And, you know, it was a little different. He's talking about trading up and maybe losing picks. He's like, you know, if it doesn't work out, like, who gives a shit? Like, I'm not going to be around anyways. And if it does work out, then you're winning. It's kind of the same deal here. Like, if you pay a player a lot of money, I mean, you're planting your flag in the dirt with Kirk Cousins again. I mean, this is year 3. Here's what the GM said. He was asked at the combine on the qualities of a great quarterback. Quote, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah here. I think there are qualities in all great quarterbacks. You have to be two players. You have to operate on schedule. If Kevin calls a great play, gets the right look versus the defense, You've got to operate at a high level, make the right decision, make an accurate throw, right? That's the stuff Kirk Cousins does. Okay, then he continued. And then there's that second play. I don't think it's very often. I think Kevin's one of the best there is, but the play doesn't work. Maybe a teammate struggles. How do you overcome context? And that's something we're going to look for. Obviously, from a leadership standpoint, that position sets the tone. You talk about somebody like Kirk. He sets an example for how he works. He's all process. He's got a phrase. It's not a hobby, and he lives every day that way. You need somebody in that position who embodies that for your team. So he kind of went back to praising Kirk, but for a brief moment there, it's like you do need somebody off schedule who can make a play. That's not Kirk Cousins, right? It never has been, and it won't be at 36 off a torn Achilles. So the devil's advocate argument for the Minnesota Vikings here is, again, like, you're going again with Kirk Cousins when he's not your quarterback, when you have an opportunity to draft somebody or move up in the draft for somebody. Like we said, it's early in the process of the draft, and I hate using that word. Sorry. But this is the first time you're looking at these guys, the Drake Mays and the Jaden Danielses, and hell, the Bo Nix, who I know you want to talk about, JJ McCarthy. What if one of these players blows them both away and they say, all right, let's move on from Kirk Cousins, because they can. It's a clean break now if they want. He's a free agent. Get on that rookie quarterback timeline and build up a defense for Brian Flores. They could. There's a lot of really good defensive players in free agency available, and they're going to get a lot of money. And I think we may have Jim Monas take a look at some of these free agents if you can fit it in. I really want your perspective on some of these guys. That's the other argument here. Just put your money into the defense. Know you're going to be paying Justin Jefferson, and think about the draft. And here we'll take a look at the draft. But your first thoughts, Jim?
Yeah, no, I'm keeping him. Like we've talked about Kirk Cousins as far as I don't really feel like he's the. We talked about him when we were in Buffalo. We did not pursue him in free agency. I guess that was the 16 season, 17. No, 16.
Feels like light years ago.
It does feel that way, but that's how long like Kirk Cousins has been in my life. I feel like that long as far as we're talking about him still. And that he's just not a guy that I thought that you can back in 16 that you sign and he's going to take you to the Super Bowl. He is the classic. I don't want to say, we're not going to use that any phrase other than he is good enough that if you have the defensive side loaded up, to your point, you can win with Kirk Cousins, no doubt. But I think we've seen the weaknesses. They show up every year. It's been that way for as long as we have talked about Kirk Cousins. It's the key turnovers, the blow games, the disaster games that happen. He does have limitations: age, athleticism at this point, arm strength, good, not special anymore. And the reason I'm saying that is when you watch these prospects in the college right now, it's insane right now how these guys are testing off the charts, arm strength for quarterbacks. It's almost like they all have it. It's
I don't know. Kurt Warner isn't impressed, Jim. I know
Kurt Warner and Dan Orlovsky. Yeah, we're going to talk about our quarterback gurus that I do respect, but
you had a little back and forth with Kurt. I almost had to get between you two.
I've never heard such a thing that the tape isn't the tape doesn't show you what you need to see for quarterback play in the NFL. Man, try telling that to your owner. Go back and watch tape of Auburn's offense when Cam Newton was there. If you think that was some sophisticated offense ready to play in the NFL, you would laugh out of your mind. It was the big explosive playmaker that made grown man throws that you've never seen before every single game with a bum offense. So I don't want to hear anything about the tape. Evaluate the player and what he's doing. Get that out of your mind. That XO crap doesn't matter. They're two different games. Study what the player can do. I can't use that as an excuse. That's weak. All right, enough of that.
You can keep going if you want. I like it.
No, because I like these prospects. These quarterback prospects are fun to talk about. We're not there yet. I want the Kirk Cousins stuff, though, to sum them up. You keep them if you can, build the defense, make a run. The NFC is still coin flip. The AFC, it's a whole new world if you're Kirk Cousins. So I would eliminate that whole conference in your free agency, unless, of course, you're going for money.
I'm gonna try to pump my brakes mentally with these prospects because I learned my lesson from a few years back when we're talking about now Trevor Lawrence, I think, is still going to be a very good quarterback, and we'll see if he can clean up the boneheaded decisions. But my God, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance is traded, Mac Jones, Justin Fields. All these guys got drafted very, very early, and the verdict, we'll see what happens with a Fields, and that'll be our next topic here. But it's just good to remember, when we're all drooling over these prospects in the film. I mean, Malik Willis was hyped up crazy 2 years ago. Let's just calm down.
Okay, so to your point, if we go back and revisit that's how long we've been doing this podcast now. But I'm just going to go on my evaluations to be able to be consistent. But Trevor was the one, Fields was my two. After that, Wilson was the guy you saw the ability, but had concerns because he hadn't faced anything with pressure and in-your-face throws. I had those concerns. I didn't like Mac Jones. I didn't like Trey Lance. So
you were good. You were spot on.
I'm just being able to say when I talk about these quarterbacks, I am going to use those as comparisons because we did talk about them, and I'm saying that these guys are different than that group. This group is exciting to me more than that group was. So I'll just leave it at that for now.
Okay, let's definitely get back to the prospects.
Whenever we do that, right.
We'll talk about that in a bit, but let's stick with the other quarterbacks that are available this month in March. Okay, we'll see what happens with Cousins. I think if Atlanta blows him away, and if Kirk Cousins wants the money, he goes there. We'll see. Vegas.
That's just hard to believe, guessing. Atlanta. If you're Kirk Cousins, and that's the other thing I would say, though.
Zach Robinson's the OC.
But Tyler, let me ask you this. In the NFC, you look at Atlanta as that much of a better opportunity than staying in Minnesota in the NFC? Like, is Atlanta really that loaded of a team? Or are we just looking, I guess what I'm saying is, what's the gap between Atlanta and Minnesota right now?
All I'm saying, he's made business decisions before.
No, and you're correct. And I'm saying if it's money, it's money. That's one thing. If it's not, you stay in Minnesota because you don't go to the AFC. If Atlanta's the only NFC team coming for you, what's the difference? How much better are they than where you're at?
Probably the number one takeaway I have just from the scuttlebutt of Indianapolis is Justin Fields really doesn't have that robust of a trade market.
We said it last podcast. It's not that easy when people know you want to get rid of somebody.
And what I just completely forgot the last time we were talking, even Vegas, I mean, you've got Lou Getsy out there as your offensive coordinator. That's who we had in Chicago and very publicly disagreed with on how the offense should be run. So that ain't happening. Zach Robinson in Atlanta. I mean, maybe Atlanta talks itself into the hometown kid. And I don't know, man. That offense that they want to run, that McVay offense, it's not conducive for Fields' skill set.
He's not going to Atlanta. I'll say it again. I said it last week on the pod. You had your chance. You had the best, like I said, in Vegas, you get that best number. You have your chance to get that when that number comes out early in the week. If you don't get it early, don't go. Atlanta had their chance to draft him to get their value. Now you'd be overpaying for him. You had your chance. Got to keep it moving. It's like, hey, when a girl asks you out and you said no, you try to go back to her 3 months later, she's laughing. Like, now you had your chance. You should have said yes.
So that leaves what? Pittsburgh?
I don't think Pittsburgh is a lock for this either because I don't think
I don't either. They don't want to give up on Pickett.
That's a first-round investment of a team that believes in their investments and gives them opportunities, like we know. And we've talked about it. I said with him, you don't give up on him yet, but you need to bring in a veteran. You need to bring in somebody other than Mason Rudolph, somebody else that can legit beat him out, and you could get to the playoffs and make a run with. If that's, the obvious choice is going to be Tannehill because of Arthur Smith. I would think that's somebody that
I mean, that's what
people will.
Tennessee did with Marcus Mariota just a few years after taking him second overall. They bring in
So
Tannehill. Tannehill wins the job, but Tannehill's older, right? He's not the same quarterback he was
I,
then.
I'm just throwing it out there. If you're doing, if he fits financially for Pittsburgh, of what they can do with Pickett, with the investment in Pickett, I'm just throwing it out. When I tell you about comfort, it's a real thing. Coaches, and they mesh up safeties and defensive coordinators. I always said Jim Leonard, Rex Ryan, he would take him, wherever he could. Um, it's a real thing. Like, I feel that way. I bet Sean McDermott probably feels a little bit that way with like Micah Hyde. Like, probably could, as long as he would want to play, probably would try to find a way for him to play.
It's only fair, and I know I'm an apologist when it comes to Kenny Pickett, but that offense with Matt Canada,
That's why
it
you can't.
it wasn't a functional NFL offense. It was unbelievably basic. Now Pickett missed throws. I mean, just every time they talk about him on TV, they'll loop him. I mean, when he has a receiver open on a crosser and sails it, he wasn't exactly maximizing his opportunities. But this was such a old school. We're just going to call a play, run the play, not necessarily exploit specific weaknesses in the defense. And you didn't see pass concepts where one route is kind of playing off another route with clear outs, and there was just none of that. Now I don't know. We'll see what Arthur Smith brings in, but you do know he's had some success as a coordinator running the ball. So that is the strength of the team. Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. Now, can they get a little creative with the passing game? Well, we'll see. I just think he deserves a real shot to prove he's the quarterback. So I think he opens as the starter, like you said, with somebody at least competing with him in training camp. I don't know who that is. We said Tannehill last time. He's older, and I know he still has a good relationship with Arthur Smith. Uh, but it's a business. Like, is there another quarterback out there that makes sense that could realistically compete and stay on the ready? Like maybe that's where Mac Jones goes.
What's I'll tell you. Okay, why not Tyrod Taylor?
I feel like Tyrod Taylor is in that bucket of. I mean, these guys are just they're ready to
No,
be a
that's what I'm
backup.
saying. A veteran. I'm trying to think of veteran backups. Are you trying to say,
Jacoby Brissett, Tyrod Taylor.
we talked about this. It's Survivor Island. I agree with you. It's jersey swaps. It's all about style of offense, fit. Like, you had those meetings. I mean, in Buffalo, when Rex Ryan took over and hired Greg Roman, Anthony Lynn, um, Danny Crossman remained the special teams coordinator. We went, that free agent meeting wasn't, they knew who they wanted, and
Yeah.
each, they knew for their style. That's when Greg Roman, we knew he wanted Charles, Clay at tight end. He wanted Matt Castle, wanted a fullback. So, we went and got felt. So it was all, I mean, it was boom, boom, boom. They have their wish list. If you can do it, you can try to, sync it up. It's beneficial. You gotta be careful though, because you can't cater you can't cater the coordinator too much. I mean,
Yeah.
we know how quick they can come and go. I mean, the stat that I saw, that I think it's all 32 coordinators have, there's been like a turnover within like the last 2 years. Some crazy stat offensively. I feel like I read. Just the turnover is
Yeah.
intense. Bottom line, regardless of the number, the turnover. So you got to be careful listening to that. That's what I mean. It's not that easy to pair up Tannehill and Arthur Smith. Like Mike Tomlin and the GM and Khan have plenty to say in that. And that's because that organization is structured correctly. Like, we know they are missing the quarterback piece right now of the core four. Owner spends money, stays out of the way. Head coach, GM, you know who the decision maker is. They're synced up. Get the quarterback. They are a quarter. That's a team I look at as a quarterback away from being legit.
Hmm. Didn't catch the Steelers. I believe Omar Khan was going to speak at a press conference, unless I missed it. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's right. He did speak. That's man, it's crazy. Some folks they skipped out on it. Some spoke. He made it clear. One second, everyone.
Well, you're in the vortex.
Yes, I know. I'm trying to step out
This
of the
is what
vortex.
happens.
So this is Omar Khan. Quote, I have full faith in Kenny Pickett. Obviously, there were some issues with the offense, and I'm excited about the impact that Arthur Smith is going to have on him. I know Arthur's very optimistic about Kenny, and I know they've communicated, and we'll see where it goes. We feel really good about him. It would be funny if there was a GM or a coach that stood there and was like, yeah, we're out. Done. Finished. I mean, Raheem Morris got pretty close to that. Speaking on Desmond Ritter, just if the
He
quarterback
wants
play
to
was
make
better, he
sure
wouldn't be there.
he wants to make sure he is not associated with Ritter.
All right, so let's get into those rookies then. I mean, you've been watching these guys. Who stands out? How does this kind of shake up the whole quarterback discussion?
I think the best way to sum it up for me is there's five in my five first round quarterbacks. Three of those five are plug and play. Two would benefit from sitting just for that first year if you can get them for there's so we could start that way if you want. I told you on last podcast it's Caleb for me, number one. Caleb Williams, good on that. Bears should take him. Move on from Fields. We talked about that, but let's go next. Believe it or not, Tyler, I thought it was going to be Jaden Daniels, lock number two for me, but Bo Nix is in that debate. It's Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels, two and three, plug and play, ready to
Not
start.
Drake May?
Not Drake May. He needs a year to sit, in my opinion. I like McCarthy. I would take a chance on McCarthy over May.
I thought you
And we can get
misspoke
into
there on Bo Nix at first. Bo
so that I
Nix.
just studied Bo Nix for the first time this past week. I did those other guys previously because I hadn't really bought into. I just felt like because he was older, been around, transferred. Then you watch him, and then you start seeing it. He does play like an old man. Like you could tell he's been in college. He is so comfortable with everything. He doesn't make poor decisions. He knows where he's going with the ball. Coaches are going to fall in love with his tape. I can't imagine athletically is what I didn't know. He can make every play athletically outside the pocket, making moves, making all the grown man throws, torquing his body. Every throw you need to see he makes. Cross the field throws, cross his body on the move that were drops, that I'm logging as throws you don't see from other quarterbacks. He has everything. I keep seeing he's being linked to Denver, Sean Payton. So I looked it up. He hits the Bill Parcells quarterback formula that Sean Payton attention to, who Sean Payton and Bill Parcells, obviously that's Bo Nix hits all those beautiful. I'm not a believer in Parcells formula, but I don't know if you know it. Do you want me to spit it out to you quick, or have you heard about the Parcells formula?
No.
So, okay. So the Parcells quarterback formula is you have to be a 3-year starter. Bo Nix was that. You need to be a senior. Bo Nix graduated from college. Bo Nix graduate. Start 30 games, win 23 games. That's a little strange. That's like whatever that percentage is, 70%, whatever that would be, maybe. He does all that. I check that. Post a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio career. He does that. Complete 60% of your passes thrown or more. He does that. So he hits the Parcells thing. Now, I don't believe in that. I'm just saying that I could see why he's linked into the whole Denver and Sean Payton thing. I could see why Sean Payton would want him. I could see why the Giants would want him.
That's
If
the
you don't
team that
believe me.
just kind of popped into mind for me. And then where does he go? Because is this the player that, I mean, shocks
This is just
everyone and gets drafted
this
before
is
anybody expects? This
this
is
is
where mock
why
drafts are terrible. I know.
mocks, every team has a different draft board. I can't stress that enough. So the mocks, they do their best, but there's going to be other receivers and other quarterbacks that we aren't like. That's what I'm trying to bring to light. Like Bo Nix is going to be somebody's darling. McCarthy and May are the two developmental guys. I do not think they're plug and play. I like both of them. Obviously, the talent is for both of them is incredible. It's that's what I was trying to say. How the game has evolved. I think the size and athleticism, it's there for all these quarterbacks. Those aren't the weak points. The weak points for me, for May, are accuracy, some decision making. That could, he takes chances that you hold your breath on. He misses. He misses a lot of touchdowns. When I studied that receiver, they have Walker. He misses some wide open touchdowns for him. McCarthy, same deal. He plays Bowling Green. You wouldn't even draft him the way he played against Bowling Green. It was unacceptable. Made no sense. They
That
throw it
bad.
out. It made no sense. But then you
What was
study the
bad?
rest of everything, interceptions, decision making. Like, what are you doing? Almost like they didn't prepare for they weren't taking the team seriously. What college kid would at Michigan? And you're 20 years old and you're playing Bowling Green this week. Guess what? You didn't really prepare too hard. You didn't really need to know the safeties and coverages on Bowling Green's defense. And it showed. That's all I would say to him in an interview. I'd say, hey, man, you took that week off. Because that's all I would say. Just tell me, because that made no
That's what
sense.
Stephon Diggs said, right? He
Hey,
admitted.
business decision when he didn't take that hit, and I said, I love it. Just tell me. I love it. So yeah, that game made no sense for McCarthy. But then you watch the rest of it. He makes athletic throws other guys can't make. I think he's a better athlete than May. Both are tough. That's what I'm trying to say. It's 5 quarterbacks that I think are worthy of first round picks.
Well, since you mentioned mock drafts, there's just been this one song replaying in my head. The old Johnny Paycheck song. Take this job and shove it. Take this mock and shove it.
100%.
It's really disgusting how many mocks have polluted the web. And I know we talk about it every year, but yeah, that every team is going to have their own perspective, their own board, and maybe Bo Nix is the player that just takes a blowtorch toward all these mocks that we're seeing right now.
It always goes back to what I talked to you about when we traded up for Sammy Watkins in Buffalo. And be very careful when you're celebrating in that draft room on that trade up, because there are a bunch of teams that may not have had Sammy Watkins as their number 1 receiver. And they're looking around saying, what did Buffalo just do? Every team they may have had Mike Evans number 1, Odell Beckham number 1, all worthy. All worthy.
I still want to bring Sammy on the podcast. We've got to make it happen. So Bo Nix, what was interesting? Listening to these quarterbacks Friday. So I hung around Indy Friday, like half the day. Wanted to hear Caleb Williams and, gosh, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, Drake May. They all kind of spoke in rapid fire succession. But it's when you kind of listen in these 10 to 15-minute blocks at their pressers, it's almost like they're campaigning, here and there. It's like a political campaign, like a stump speech. They've got it prepared. They were sitting down with the agent before this thing, and it's like it really is like somebody running for president, and they've got the pollsters, they've got the handlers, they've got the campaign manager, and they're going right down the list like bullet points, because you have JJ McCarthy. I'm a winner. That's all I care about is winning. Winning, 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 winning. Bo Nix, experience. I've got the experience, which, I mean, it's all true. I didn't realize this until this week that Bo Nix, his 61 games played makes him the most experienced QB to ever enter the draft. And it's great. I mean, his numbers are nuts. He threw for 45 touchdowns, 3 picks, 4,508 yards, completing 77.4% of his passes last year.
It was so clean watching his tape. But I judge the pressure plays too. That really, when he is getting hit and making the throws, it's incredible. So it is. I'm just picturing coaches watching that tape, and I just know, because Jaden Daniels, in comparison, there's tape of him that you do cringe on, some missed opportunity on throws, the hits he takes that I know are being I know we talked about too, but he does take wicked hits. He does have that lean frame. I'm not worried about his size, just the way he takes the hits. He needs to be conscious of that. But he is so special as a playmaker. He can make all his throws are crazy too. He makes all the throws that are highlight throws, but he misses throws as well. And he's off. But the whole I love how everybody talks about, not everybody, but when I hear stuff, especially like in rhythm, or Caleb Williams is running around in the pocket too much, or Jaden Daniels runs. Have you seen these offenses? I keep going back to that. Are you watching the lack of protection? And they don't have a choice but to run around and make plays. And it's okay if you can
Yeah.
do that. So don't take that off the quarterback. That I don't know how many people play in rhythm. I mean, when I think of some of Patrick Mahomes' insane plays, they're not necessarily drawn up and nice and clean looking. They're him running around making the most ridiculous head scratching throw you've ever seen. And that's what Caleb Williams does. And I don't know why he gets, sometimes I hear criticism
Right.
that he's panics. It's not no, he's just making a play. He's not panicking.
But dude, like
Anyway,
that's what drew the Packers to Jordan Love. I mean,
yes. And he
you
did
know,
that this year.
it was
Yes.
clean. His second to last year at Utah State was clean and his numbers were better. The last year, his numbers weren't that great. I think he threw 20 touchdowns, 17 picks. But I know that season impressed Brian Gutekunst, Matt LaFleur, and the Packers because he did have a ton of guys who graduated and a ton of injuries. And he's at Utah State. And he did play some big time schools like LSU, and it wasn't pretty. But he had to improvise. He had to run around. He had to make plays. It was that off schedule stuff that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah mentioned at the combine. And hell yeah, that's how it's going to be in the NFL a lot of times. So if you can do both, which Jordan Love did both, Patrick Mahomes has done both, then you're cooking with gas. And I just chuckle because, I mean, COC Mariner, his number one receiver at Utah State, was crucified when he told us at Go Long in 2020, Love's rookie year, that a lot of the stuff Mahomes is doing, Jordan Love can do too. The off-platform stuff. He was on that team, that offense. And yeah, you've got Jason Wilde, Mark Tauscher there, Milwaukee Radio, ripping Go Long for saying we're comparing Love to Patrick Mahomes. It was COC Mariner, his teammate, that was with him every day. And it was valid. I mean, that was the point. And now you're seeing it. So that's a great point by you. Like, which quarterbacks, when things aren't going well, can still make plays?
All of these guys can. These top five we're talking about. Two things. Dan Quinn, Matt Ryan in Atlanta. Bo Nix, Dan Quinn, Matt Ryan. There's a comparison there that would be very familiar to Dan Quinn. I can promise you that he's a ready to go professional. Bo Nix, just like Matt Ryan, Matt Ryan coming out of college was ready to play. Like he had all, just like Bo Nix would be.
They don't take
Next
him
thing,
at 2, though, right? They
you'd
trade
have
down,
to.
you think? You would just take him at 2.
Oh yeah, I would take him if as long as Quinn was good with him. Yeah, I would take either him or Daniels, whichever one they feel like they want to run their offense. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's simple for me. Either one, whichever one they feel comfortable with, you're good with.
Well,
Um,
I think you just kind of made up my mind. I was going to try to profile one of these quarterbacks and probably should take a close look at Bo Nix, huh?
Tyler, he's awesome. Like it's real. It's good. It's legit. Um, the next thing I wanted to say, I was thinking about Steph Curry, the way when Curry came on to the scene in the NBA, and now we've seen that effect with all the way guys can just shoot threes from everywhere. That wasn't the way it was, when we were watching the NBA growing up. And now everybody can just bomb threes. That's the Mahomes effect. It has happened. These guys have grown up watching Lamar and Mahomes and Josh Allen now, and they can all make these. They're at least practicing to make these crazy throws. Whether or not they can do it or not, if they can, it's pretty special. Like you can see they work on it. They're practicing this stuff. They've watched it. So it's Mahomes, Steph Curry have changed the way these guys have
Yeah. It's a great
played the
point.
game.
I mean, Mahomes is not just that. I mean, Bobby Stroop, his trainer, put out that video of him like training for his body to be horizontal and barrel roll out of a tackle or out of a situation. That's what happened in the playoffs there against Baltimore when he gets twisted up. So, I mean, their quarterbacks today are training themselves in ways that are
Mm.
revolutionary. They might seem strange. Now, then you got Jameis Winston and those training methods. That gets a little funky.
Everything about him is
Where's
a little bit.
Jameis going to be? Where's Jameis going?
Well, once again, do you want that style? You know what you're getting. You're going to get your chances. You're going to. What do we always talk about? Backup quarterback. Most important thing. If he's going to play 4 games, can he be 2-2? Can you go 2-2 with a backup quarterback? And yes, you could do that with Jameis Winston, knowing you know what you're getting. Like if you're a team that likes to score, if you want your offense to stay in that, if your starter goes down and that's big, Winston's your guy. Like if you're okay with, he can stretch the field and take chances and do what you want down the field, throwing the ball, that'll be your guy.
Can I give a little hope to Buffalo Bills fans? They need a wide receiver. This is the draft to find a starting wide receiver. They it's loaded at the top. It's deep. You've got every body type you'd want, every skill set you'd want. Everybody I talk to in Indianapolis just gushes about this class of receivers. I don't see how you can take anything but now you don't want to get caught in that mind frame, right? You don't want to go into a draft saying, absolutely, we're taking this player, but you probably want to be as close to that mindset as you can if you're Buffalo. Because Brian Thomas, I mean, pick your receiver, not just in the first round. I think they could get a receiver in the first round and find another really good talent in the third or fourth if they really wanted to double up.
So once again, that's who I've been studying as well. And you are correct. You can stay right where you are. If so, that's how you judge it. If you're Buffalo, if receiver is something obviously on your wish list, you can probably stay where you are. You're not gonna have to go anywhere to get one. That's a great feeling. Now, if there's somebody you covet, that's when it gets different. That's when it gets tricky. But as long as you judge or have 5 or 6 that you look at, Tyler, it's loaded.
Who do you like? Is there one that,
I was going to say, do you have a list? And if you give me a name of like
yeah,
guys, give me names and I'll tell you yes or no for the Bills if I like it, or if I would want somebody better.
Brian Thomas out of LSU?
Yes, love, love. I feel like honestly, I think he is every bit as good as that receiver at Washington.
Really?
I
Roma
think Brian
Dunze.
Thomas has a I think Brian Thomas has a ceiling. Like Odunze is legit who he is. He's big, fast, but there is Brian Thomas. There's more to come with him. There is some special playmaking with him. So yes,
So you're probably
that
looking at
would be
Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze
those
as
guys are.
the cream
I
of the
think those
crop.
guys. Yeah. I think they deserve to be up there, all around good. I don't think there's. I will say this. I wouldn't. Harrison is my one, but there's not like a.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There's those other guys. It's not like you'd have to go up for Harrison.
I mean, to kind of bring it back to the top of the draft for a moment, I think that's why Arizona is interesting. If there is this manic run on quarterbacks, because you do have teams like Minnesota, Atlanta, the Giants, who
mm-hmm.
might be trying to inch their way up the board. If you're the Cardinals and you're looking at your roster, why not trade down again? I mean, I get it. It's appealing to
You have
take
your
the best
quarterback.
non-quarterback there, but
You have your quarterback.
move down Neighbors, Odunze, Thomas. They
No
could
doubt.
still get a receiver and then pick up a first in 2 seconds, whatever they want.
Tyler, well said. You have your quarterback in place. When you have your quarterback in place, you are crazy, in my opinion, not to listen and trade down unless obviously there's somebody you covet. But
I
if
kind
those
of love
positions,
how Arizona, and we've poked fun at Arizona a lot on this show. Uh, Jonathan Gannon and that team, it seems, has been unbelievably supportive of Kyler Murray publicly, privately. as they should. I mean, I think Kyler Murray's just kind of a different. He, he's he's quiet, borderline aloof. I've talked to people who know him pretty well. We had a story this time last year. Jordan Hogan, who is a young, promising coach in this game. He was with the San Francisco 49ers last year. He's spent some time in Buffalo, actually, and the Cardinals, and he coached at Colgate even. He's been all over the place. It's a name that people are going to hear in the future. He was around Kyler Murray and just raves about his football mind. And we all had fun talking about the homework clause and the video game stuff and whatever. Like this is an improvisational, creative quarterback who does see the game in a totally different way than anybody else. So for the Cardinals to have his back, I think is correct and what Murray needs. I could be a team. I'm not saying they're going to be in the playoffs next year, but this team that seemed like all hope was lost not too long ago, they're at least moving in the right direction right now.
So when you were talking about Arizona and we poked fun at them in the past, I think what we did though, I think we were talking about the previous regime in Arizona with Keim and the circus with Keim and Wilkes and blah blah blah. It was a circus. This new regime, first impression was an A plus. That head coach handled that adversity this year and a quarterback controversy, I thought extremely well. And to your point, they had Murray's back. And behind the scenes, Murray knew it. They just didn't want to make it all public. And hey, we have your, and it's showing. Like they're excited now for what's coming. And now Murray's the guy. You've committed to him. You know his style. You know what his weaknesses are as well, which is big. Now you can build on it. If you can trade back, what a year, what a great year to do it. It is like this is the one when you're looking for weapons, and you talked about this with Buffalo, like why not load up? Man, you have
Yeah.
Kincaid, Diggs. I
It's
can't
an
even think of
opportunity.
what
We
else.
always talk about the Super Bowl window with the Buffalo Bills. I think this draft is an opportunity to draft receivers. You've got Joe Brady running the offense now, did a lot of really good things. You've got a chance to add some. We'll see what happens with Diggs. To me, that still just seems like noise in the case of a player anticipating a team wanting him to restructure his contract and not wanting to do that, and that player maybe not having a lot of leverage. I think cooler heads will prevail. He's in Buffalo. I don't think he's this declining, aging receiver. You lose Gabe Davis. Okay, that may sting, but you'll be able to maybe find something better than Gabe Davis in this draft. I think there's a good chance you do. Um, he played above his draft position. He was a fourth round pick who gave this team a lot. Uh, but that's why they should have been drafting receivers all along. You get somebody out of an LSU, out of one of these offenses that's just a well-oiled machine, and they're ready to go in the NFL today, unlike 5-10 years ago. And you get them on a cost control contract for 4 years, right? It's why would you in free agency spend a ton of money when a lot of these receivers are ready to go day one, game one, Super Bowl contender?
It looks like the result of just the amount of emphasis on 7-on-7 passing games that start at young ages now from high school and in college football with the advanced, it's all about passing games. Everybody wants to be a receiver. Everybody wants to be a quarterback growing up. Now you're seeing it. The receivers are 2-3 rounds deep of playmakers. Like that's rare to see this many guys that you would be excited about. And not just have a clear, when you can just sit back and say, oh,
Yeah.
one of those three are there. I'm happy with any one of those three. That's one of the great feelings in a draft room. I always go back to that crazy draft we had in New Orleans when we're sitting there in the 7th round talking about Marcus Colston versus Miles Austin. Like in the 7th round, that's an
Yeah.
insane argument that we were having. That either way we were right.
Took the right one.
We took
Marcus
the right one for
Colston.
the Saints. We took the right one for the Saints, and we thought it.
Yeah.
But that's how it goes. When you can get to that point, if you're just arguing about two guys that, or not arguing, but that's a great feeling.
Fist fights then, you took it.
Not in the seventh round
Yeah.
ever, but that was one that was the coaches wanted Colston. Personnel that at that time I think thought maybe Miles Austin was the guy, and the receivers coach that we had at the time, Curtis Johnson, uh, and Johnny Morton was the assistant receivers coach. They were both big on Colston, and that's why that Coach Payton and Mickey Loomis made that decision.
By the way, Sean Payton was the most entertaining coach or GM in that press conference setting. He just does not give a damn, man. He's getting
He looks pretty.
paid. He's in charge. He's
he looks
he's gonna say whatever the hell he wants. It's beautiful.
I'm laughing hard because I'm glad you said that. He looks very. He looked refreshed.
Yeah.
He looked very. I'm in control. We're going after a quarterback. I've been given the go ahead that we are moving on from Russell, and I am excited.
It was great. I mean, he opened up with obviously a Russell Wilson question, and he kind of laid out the timeline and said it's going to happen by whatever, like mid-March. He pointed to the date, and it was kind of followed up with, he's like, well, I just said 2 weeks. Like, he looked pissed off that he's going to deal with this quarterback for 2 more weeks. Like, he just wants to move on.
Yeah.
Eat
That's
the money.
What happens this time. Yep. Because now your plans are in place. Now you start to know who you're targeting, and now you're kind of excited. Hate to always go back to relationships, but when you move on in relationships, and you're excited about that next relationship, and that's where Coach Payton's at.
Maybe this is the Bo Nix podcast too. I mean, doesn't that make sense for all the reasons? Like Parcells was like a father figure for Sean Payton in this sport,
and he got Pete Carmichael back, his trustee.
Yeah,
it's all coming together. That's why he's feeling good. He's feeling good.
That was awesome, Jim. A ton of insight from. I always say longtime scout, longtime scout exec extraordinaire, the great mind of one Jim Monos, always seeing the game in a different way. That was awesome. Thank you, everyone, for listening, for reading. We're going to have some really interesting stuff for you at Go Long. I sat down with a GM for one of the teams that was discussed on this podcast, and it's a seminal offseason for this team. So chatted for about an hour with this individual. You can expect that story at Go Long. And also sat down with an area scout for the Super Bowl winning Kansas City Chiefs. He kind of took me through the process of finding, scouting, studying one of the best players on the Chiefs that they drafted. Really fascinating stuff, Jim. And that conversation is exactly what we were talking earlier. We got together at 7:30 a.m., which doesn't happen if either one of us are hitting it the night before at prime or high velocity. This scout has a child himself and is on those circadian rhythms of going to bed early. So, hey, all you other reporters out there are other ways to cover the combine than, being jammed up like sardines at Prime 47 at 3 a.m. What a scene. It would be, there's no way to do this. That's a reality show I would watch, Jim. It really is, like the real combine. Hidden cameras, the whole works.
I lived it, saw plenty I did not see, to your point.
Well, let's just say Jerry's bus is parked right outside of Prime, and what happens on Jerry's bus stays on Jerry's bus. I think that's what they say.
I was not
any thoughts there?
You
never made your way on there?
I was never close to being on that bus, but I worked for a coach in New Orleans that may have been on that very small invite list to that bus.
Did he kiss and tell?
No, there's code. Plenty of code.
There's Nate Hackett has codes.
Nate Hackett code.
Jerry Jones has codes. Two very different codes.
Oh, we can't talk about. We'll have to do that. Is Hackett still employed? What's his role now? I feel like
Yeah. Is Aaron Rodgers still the quarterback for the New York Jets?
man, he's
Is the
still
sky blue?
might be the head coach. All right, sorry, that was a different topic. Go ahead.
We almost got through a whole podcast without talking Aaron Rodgers. We almost made it, Jim.
Mm.
Never, never. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We appreciate you.